You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
Happy opening day to those who celebrate. Tell you what, lots percolating behind the scenes here at Leafs Morning Take presented by Betano. A lot of looking at the standings happening on this Thursday. Nick Alberga and Jay Rosehill. What's going on, buddy?
Yeah, no kidding, man. It's like all at once. It's like, whoa, what's going on here in the standings? Where it's been pretty quiet on that thing for a while. So it seems like it happened all at once. But the Lightning are nipping at the Leafers' heels, aren't they?
7-0-1 in the last 8 games, capped off by a monster 3-1 victory against the Boston Bruins on Wednesday night. A game I watched pretty closely. Did you see and hear the Maple Leafs suck chants emulating in that Amalie Arena, which I thought was fascinating? It definitely wasn't Lightning fans creating that. It had to be Bruins fans.
Yeah, that was weird, man. Like their Leafs are on people's minds even when they aren't even playing. They're not even in the same country. I love it. Good.
It's wild. It's wild. And I just think you look at that Tampa team specifically, I think that would be a difficult team to come the Stanley Cup playoffs to play. I think luckily the Leafs will not be playing them. Right now it comes down to Tampa, Florida, Carolina, or the New York Rangers. Who would you like to play?
Well, personally, I wouldn't mind crossing over and playing in against that other division. I would rather play the Rangers or the Hurricanes. I'm not saying they're poor teams or they're weak or anything like that, but the Boston Bruins have our number. They're one of the best teams in the world the last couple of years, and I don't think they're going to screw up playoffs like they did last time. And the Florida Panthers are just absolutely built for playoffs. And I don't think they screw around in playoffs. And I think they're probably the toughest opponent in the league you could face in the first round. For those reasons, I would like to go play against a Carolina or a New York. Not that they're not that they're cakewalks or anything. I just think we match up against them a little better. And mentally, I don't think that they have our number as much.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think, again, the Leafs are not in a position where they get to pick and pinpoint who they want to play in the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. But if you're polling me, somebody who covers this team, of those 4 teams I mentioned, it's the New York Rangers I'd want to play, which I think is really peculiar because they're the first team to clinch a playoff spot, which they did on Tuesday. But I think from a matchup standpoint, the Leafs match up really, really well against the New York Rangers for some reason. Like every time they play them strong. Whereas you look at the Boston Bruins, you look at the Florida Panthers, the Carolina Hurricanes, as we've seen the last little while, it's just a tough matchup. It's a tough matchup for one reason or another when it comes to the Maple Leafs. So I think that's probably my answer. I think it would be the New York Rangers I'd want to face in the first round.
Well, it's pretty possible, right? It's
Yeah.
I don't know, depending on what. Yeah, it's making it more interesting. That's for sure. I'm going to be watching, closer now because it matters. And like just on yesterday's show, we were talking, or one of the shows recently, about like this time of year is kind of boring. The points don't really matter. Now all of a sudden it's like some big implications, but it's not implications of like, oh my God, we could fall out of a playoff spot. We're fighting for our life. It's kind of odd because, like, let's say there is, a common agreement. I don't think it would be spoken by any stretch of the imagination in that locker room, but let's just say the vibe is kind of like, this isn't the worst thing. We're kind of sliding down to a playoff spot. We got, guys resting, guys out of the lineup. We're not rushing anyone back. We're, messing around with goaltenders. Like Auston Matthews isn't on the ice where, for pregame skate today, I think that would probably, in my mind, just be because it's an optional skate, but we can get to that later. But there's reason to like not really put the hammer down right now, which is just an odd place to be. It's just really weird that there's almost like incentive if you follow that narrative that it's not the worst thing in the world to play out of division, to be at this point in the season and kind of be like, yeah, no real reason to go hammer down right now, guys. It's odd. I don't really love it, to be honest, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it's fair. And Michael writes in, going at us a bit just to start the show. How in the hell can you guys think the New Jersey games was meaningless? The Lightning are 2 points behind and breathing down their neck. I'm riding with that. I don't think the games matter. Like, I just don't care who they play in the first round. I know this team is completely capable of beating anyone. I know reading social media last night after Tampa wins that game, it's like, oh, I'd rather the Leafs go through the Metro anyways. They're going to play who they're going to play. I think they can beat, and they're capable of beating any team. Having said that, I still think they find a way to solidify third in the Atlantic Division. I mean, their fate's in their own hands, as mentioned on yesterday's show. They play Florida, I think, a couple more times. They play Tampa a couple more times. Like, the Leafs will figure out what they want to do and how they want to play and who they're going to dress down the stretch, and they shouldn't deviate from that game plan. But it's also a thing where I think they will solidify their place in the standings here.
Maybe, maybe not. I mean, those games against Tampa, those games against Florida, they're massive now. Like, not like detrimental, but they're massive in the implications of who's playing who and what the shuffle's going to do, just basically because of, a little bit of a skid that they've been on and the heater that Tampa's been on. So, no, I mean, they're all good hockey teams. The Maple Leafs are a good hockey team. Rangers, Carolina, Boston, Florida, Tampa, they're all really good hockey teams, and they've all had levels of success, and you're going to play one of them. It's going to be a hard series, no question. But, when we're looking at it with more of a fine tooth comb and you're going through it and the history and the matchups and the strengths and weaknesses of each team, it's natural to start going, well, who would we rather play now that we've had our eyes on Boston forever? It just looked like it was pretty guaranteed, and things kind of shuffle and square up and get closer. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, shit, what happens if we did face Carolina? What happens if we did face, I think I don't know, man. I think there's a pretty good chance we could play New York Rangers, but nonetheless, it's just an odd position to be in, because you're going to play those teams. You're going to play Florida. You're going to play Tampa, and it's going to be like, oh, well, so-and-so wasn't in, and we gave this guy a shot, and then this guy got promoted because so-and-so's getting rested. And it's kind of all over the place. And it's like, well, were they going hammer down? It's just kind of this weird vibe before the playoffs, where I would way rather prefer it where you are 2-3 points behind a certain team, and you want to get there, because if you get, leapfrog them, you play a considerably weaker team, and you're just going hammer down with your best lineup, best effort, best everything. Your mind is clear, your focus is clear, the goal is clear, away you go. And it's just not that way right now. It's just kind of a weird, murky thing. And honestly, I attribute it to the wild card seeding that they do. It makes it for some odd times this year, and I don't really love it. I kind of wish it was 1 versus 8.
My money is on the Florida Panthers. I think games in hand are a big thing to look at this time of year. Tampa's 2 points back, but the Leafs do have a game in hand, and rest is going to be a big thing. If you remember back on Sunday, Tampa rested Braden Point, Victor Hedman. They still win that game, but I think we're going to see a lot of that down the stretch. And we'll see what happens with this Maple Leafs team as they get set to host the Washington Capitals Thursday night at Scotiabank Arena. Just a reminder, check out the Leafs Nation After Dark following that game, where Auston Matthews, if he does play, which we'll get to, could get to 60 goals for the second time in his career, I think, which would be perfect with Alex Ovechkin and the Red Hot Capitals in the building for that one. At the Leafs Nation 401, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcasts as well. And make sure to leave us a 5-star review as well, right, Rosie?
Yeah, do that as well. Yeah, I don't know. I have trouble hitting the subscribe button and stuff. I forget to like things that I like, but if you see our content and you kind of enjoy it, you follow the Leafs, give it a subscribe, and then every once in a while it'll come by your feed and you can keep up. And hey, baby, simple. It's easy. Do it.
Thank you for the save, because I was stalling because I didn't have my ad reads in front of me, but I do now. Brought to you by DoorDash. It's time for the appetizer. For a limited time, our listeners can get 25% off, up to $10 in value, and 0 delivery fees in their first order, $15 or more. When you download the DoorDash app, enter code NATION25. That's code NATION25, all in uppercase. 25% off your first order with DoorDash. Offer valid in Canada, subject to change, terms apply. So that's the big news as we started the show. Morning skate, it seemed like everybody but Edmondson, Riley, and Auston Matthews were accounted for. Having said that, Mitch Marner was a placeholder. He's already been ruled out for this game. He was a placeholder on the top line, which leads me to believe we're going to hear from Sheldon Keefe momentarily that Auston Matthews will in fact play tonight, but I guess maybe he took the option for the morning skate.
Yeah, it's not rare that the morning skate is optional. You get to this point in the season and, a coach oftentimes will say, hey, whatever you need to do, if you need to go and do a real light workout, get on the bike, if you want to go in the cold plunge pool, or if you want to get, your legs rubbed down, and you want to do some dynamic stretching, or you want whatever it is that you think you need to get ready for the game, they'll let you do. And you can vary from the from the routine a little bit at this point in the season, especially if you're Auston Matthews. You know, they're not going to force you to go on the ice just to do a couple loop and shoots if you don't feel like that's what you need. You know, the Sheldon Keefe thing yesterday, I want to get on that, or are you holding it for later?
No, it's fine. I mean, if you want to get to that, there was a bit of confusion at practice yesterday, just, seeing some of the quotes and people who cover the team on a daily basis. I guess Sheldon Keefe had like a regular practice session put together and then opted for a lighter optional. It was like a skills day, which I'm sure you can speak to. This happens quite frequently, but I thought it was interesting that they didn't have a normal practice. Because again, your practice days in general with the new CBA are limited, and the Stanley Cup playoffs are just around the corner. You have new players. You don't get time to practice as much as you would like, and then they don't practice as a full team. But Sheldon Keefe, I think the key quote that stuck out for me: all of a sudden we were light, and many of the things I wanted to do today were not going to be possible with less people. Did you read much into that?
Yeah, I did a little bit. I mean, people were kind of, the way it was described wasn't very clear, and people were like, did guys like refuse to go on the ice and like hold a coup and all that? It's like, Jesus, no. It's an optional skate. So optional skates basically mean if you're an older guy like Mark Giordano or something like that, you can absolutely choose to ride the bike and hit the pools and get a little rub down instead. If you're a really high minute guy like William Nylander, you can absolutely stay off the ice and choose to do a different routine. But if you haven't been at your best lately, if you've been struggling, if things bouncing, you haven't got the bounces late, if you're just, things aren't going ideal, you get out there and you see what can happen on the ice and snap it around a little bit. So there was an optional practice yesterday. I think Keefe expected a lot more guys after their performance the game before and being kind of called out to be out there and ready to rock and kind of show, no, we're on the ice. And I guess a whole bunch of guys took the option. And then Keefe standing out there going, everything I planned for drills and whatnot. There's only, I don't know how many players were out there, but it obviously wasn't as many as Keefe had planned. So it's not an ideal look. It shows that the guys aren't really on the same page with Sheldon Keefe. Showed that his expectations were different than the guys in the room. And whoever those guys in particular were that he thought were going to be out there took the option. It's just not an ideal look. And it's not the end of the world, don't get me wrong, but it's not really like the same page type of environment that you'd think you'd want to be on at this point in the season.
Definitely. And everybody around the situation has been getting testy the last couple of days. It really is bizarre, and it just gives you a sense of the time of year and what's on the line for this team. By the way, Sheldon Keefe just speaking to the media, Auston Matthews is a game time decision with an illness. So he might not play after all. I think if I'm the Leafs, I probably wouldn't want him to play. I think Austin, take the night off, get better, come back on Saturday, visiting the Buffalo Sabres. But that's the latest on Auston Matthews. I think what just kills the whole idea of this show. We're going to talk about Matthews trying to go for 60, and now it might not happen. So I think if Matthews can't go, a lot of guys on that roster need to pull that weight, obviously.
Well, yeah, you'll look to the supporting cast a lot tonight, right? With Matthews and Marner out of the lineup, if that's what indeed happens. Those same guys need to step up big. You want to see the Domies and Bertuzzis and the McMahons and Holmbergs and these guys, continue to play as they have. I know there's a couple of hiccups last game, but those guys have been noticeable. They've been part of it, and they got to work on their playoff style hockey and get out there and take the opportunity to take one more step forward, and that'll probably be their MO going forward. But again, it's just more odd vibes this time of year, as you're not sure how much stock to put into this game. You're not sure how much they're putting into it. How important are the points? Are they at all? Would we rather slide? It's just this weird time of year that I'm honestly not in love with, but I don't know, makes you wonder how much emphasis is on, getting their shit together and getting rocking and rolling here. You hope by the end of, the last couple of games, the last week and a half leading up to the playoffs, they're kind of going to go with their lineup. Everyone's ready. Everyone's starting to kick it into gear and have full steam ahead going into the first game of the playoffs, but we'll see.
Who'd be excited about the potential of Auston Matthews not playing? Sheldon Keefe, because that means he could put his lines in a blender again, and he could try different looks. I mean, we haven't seen some configuration. I think we've seen everything. Maybe we see a line of like Domi, Nylander, Bertuzzi. I'm sure at some point in time, maybe somebody in the chat can clarify. We've probably seen that trio, but I think there's a potential of seeing that. So again, if you're just tuning in, Auston Matthews, a game time decision due to illness against the Washington Capitals. So the wait for 60 might have to wait a bit longer. And we're going to get to that game momentarily. But I think certainly, I think you see a player of that ilk get hurt in the room. And guys just know, I mean, you have to seize the moment. And I think the good thing about this Maple Leafs team from that respect, they've proven, excuse me, to be rather resilient, right? That game against St. Louis, Bob McMahon gets that hat trick when there was no Marner, no Tavares, among others. The game against Edmonton over the weekend sticks out where it's like everything was pointing towards an easy, simple Oilers victory, and the Leafs handed them their lunch, dinner, and breakfast for that matter. So if you see Matthews out, I wouldn't stray from the money line. I think I'm expecting a response from the Leafs tonight.
Yeah, and mentally with this team, they've been odd. I think that's why you get some of the, the Jekyll and Hyde and some of the inconsistencies with, their, I don't want to say effort, but just, definitely their results and the product on the ice. And, when you take those guys out, I think that, it might be a little bit easy to rely on those guys, right? Like if you are a McMahon or just some of that supporting cast, you kind of look at Auston Matthews and Marner and these guys, and you're like, oh yeah, they're leading the way, and you expect them to do their thing, and if they're not on, if you're not there to pick up the slack, then they kind of get rolled, right? So if they're gone right off the bat and they're not playing, those guys know they have to elevate, and that could be kind of the mental mindset of some of these players going in on why they kind of perform and compete at times and get the job done with some of the big boys out. That's the only thing I could point to. But again, just more odd time of the year, odd time to be breaking it down, where they're at, where their mind's at, how much, compete they have in them and why and what's motivating them. And it's just an odd time of year, man. I really don't like it personally. It's totally fucked.
What, in terms of what?
In terms of, should we play our guys? Like there's honestly talk about, do we want to win all these games? Do we want to go down and go to the wild card spot? Should we,
I don't know if the team's talking about that.
I
I
know
think
they're
it's
not. They're not talking
yeah.
about that. But the mindset of, holy shit, now that it's in the conversation where before it wasn't, rest all these guys. Like Auston Matthews, oh, you got the little tummy ache? Absolutely, we're not playing you. And it's just an odd time of year. What are we playing for? Who's resting? Are they resting or are they hurt? Like it's just all over the place. And it's kind of annoying. And again, I feel like if it was the 1-8 system, there would be clear and present goals on no, we lose 3 points to this team. Now we play this team that's got considerably more points. Like the 1-8 system's just more clear. Like it's just you 100% want to be up at the top. And it's just not really that way right now. It's kind of a weird system. But anyway, it is what it is. This flu bug has been going through their team since what? Like December. Every week there's someone with the goddamn flu. Like, can't it just run through everyone quickly and get it out of their system? But
Yeah.
another weird look, and we'll see what the lines are. I don't like the inconsistency is what I'm trying to say. I want our fucking playoff team on the ice. I want them in their lines, and I want them gelling and getting their stuff going and getting momentum going, getting chemistry. And it is anything but that at this time of the year, especially when guys are coming out and Keefe's at the helm, and Lord knows what we're going to see tonight.
So 1-8, if that was the settings that they were playing with right now, it would be the Rangers in Washington, it would be Boston and Philadelphia, it would be Florida and Tampa, which would be unbelievable, and Carolina and the Toronto Maple Leafs, and the Leafs would be 8 points back of home ice in the first round. Carolina's got 97, Maple Leafs have 89, Tampa's 2 points back. So the Leafs would be between 5th and 6th. It would be either Carolina in the first round or Florida. So who do you want of those two teams?
Carolina.
Yeah.
Carolina.
You like Carolina? You think that'd be an easy, or not an easier matchup, but a team they can beat?
There's nothing easy, but
Yeah.
I just think that the Florida Panthers is who do you not want to play in order of 1, 2, whatever?
Yeah.
In the whole Eastern Conference, and Florida's number 1, and I would say Boston's number 2, and they happen to be like our most, potential matchups for a lot of the year. I just think we match up a little bit better against Carolina, and same with the Rangers. Even though the Rangers are quite a wagon, they're very well rounded. They've got a little bit of everything, man. I do not get this wrong, Leafs Nation. No one is saying this team would be easy. There is no easy team that this Leafs, and it's all about how the Leafs play and how they perform. But mentally they can get fucked in the playoffs. They get mentally mind screwed, and they've done it before, and they've dropped series to the Canadians and to Columbus, and like, good Lord, like they've not had good juju in the playoffs. And I
Yeah.
don't think playing the goddamn Boston Bruins is any better with, the recent results against them, the history they have against Boston, the powerhouse that they are and have been for 2 years. And then you got the Florida Panthers that I think are the ideal makeup structure of a winning formula playoff team. And that is not exactly what the Leafs need to go up against first round if you want good juju. So I don't mind crossing over into the Metro and getting a different opponent, a different look this year. I think it would be good for them.
We'll see what happens. I could tell you this: if the Leafs are going to do anything substantial this spring, they need Mitch Marner. He's practicing, he's skating. It sounds like he's going to take part. Well, actually, he did take part in his first full practice today as a placeholder, as mentioned. It's a morning skate, so not a real practice, I guess. But yesterday Keefe did say that he was identifying Friday as a day for Marner to get back there and practice. He didn't sound hopeful that Marner was going to play against Buffalo. I think you want to be obviously extra cautious. Somebody's coming back from a high ankle sprain the way he does, but I would say in the next week, Mitch Marner could come back. So that's good news.
Yeah, for sure. And just again with the situation they're in, I think he's probably feeling pretty damn good right now. He's probably snapping it around. He could probably do everything, but I doubt they'll play him this week. I would just keep him out because let's just say he thinks he's pretty good and he's kind of like 90%. Normally, yeah, you're feeling pretty good, but a high ankle sprain, I mean, we saw it with Joseph Woll all season. You go and tweak that thing at this point of the year, and you're not really playing until the playoffs. So, like, there's
Mhm.
no reason, again, especially because of the standing situations, and it's not like dire needs to, you're not slipping out of a playoff contention or anything like that. So, there's no reason to rush a high ankle sprain. I don't think he'll play this weekend. I think they'll probably revisit and just make sure he has been 100% for some time before they even put him into real play, because it's just not worth it with an injury like that. You tweak it and you're going to lose weeks, man, and they just don't have that timeline.
It's hard to believe it, but they'll have 10 games remaining after tonight's game against the Washington Capitals, so 9 after the Buffalo one. I think that's a perfect buffer zone to find a way to get Mitch Marner back in the lineup, so look for that next week. It sounds like Ilya Samsonov is close to, I guess he hurt his calf muscle. Like he was talking, like they make him talk to the media way too much, by the way. Like he talks more than Joseph Woll, or maybe it's just me, or maybe Woll just says nothing. But Samsonov's disclosing his entire injury. Meantime, we have no clue with Riley, Edmondson, anybody. But with Samsonov, we've identified the calf. It's a strain. I think he had a sore muscle. At the end of the day, these goalies, and we talked about it on Monday with Carter Hutton, drop like flies. You can't trust them. But he feels good. He said he's ready to play, but he's going to back up. We're going to get into that. But that's good news considering the way he left that game against Edmonton. I don't know about you. I was watching it live. I'm like, fuck.
Yeah, I mean, any team this time of year, a goalie goes down and has to get helped off the ice. It's it's not a good look.
But
But
then they said he was fine. How do you go from being helped off the ice, he could put no weight, and then all of a sudden after the game he's fine, and it's I don't even know how he phrased it, but it didn't sound like a real injury.
yeah, it sounds like he whacked his calf against the post. So then
Yeah.
I don't know, whatever the hell that does makes your calf muscle feel all bunged up. He probably thought it was a little worse than it was when it first happened. And then, Keefe goes in the training room, he's sitting there, he talks to the trainer, talks to Ilya, and then it's kind of like, okay, you just kind of whacked your calf against the post, you're all good, you're pretty much good. So I think in the press conference, he was kind of like, yeah, he's going to be fine. He didn't tear his knee. He didn't, you know what I mean? He's
Yeah.
just saying, oh, he's going to be fine. He kind of has a bonk, and I don't know. I assume he's ready to go. I think, it is a little weird that Keefe said that, and then he's still kind of out for a little bit. But yeah, I don't think there's any reason he's toughing it out. I don't think he should tough it out. I don't think he wants to tough it out. He's just going to kind of get her healed up, take some time. I think the whole theme is if anything's bothering you, take some time. Seems to be the theme. And the standing situation makes me realize, yeah, I could see why they would kind of think that if they're not saying it out loud, which I don't think they are. I think mentally and subconsciously they don't really mind the potential of playing a couple of the different options that came up recently.
Yeah, I think in this era we coin it as load management. Don't fret. It's happening with every playoff contender around the league as they get closer and closer to the Stanley Cup playoffs. I talked about Tampa with Hedman at point. Teams are going to, find ways to sit some of their better players out as they get closer and closer. And then you'll see by the last 3-4 games, they want to ice their real roster and get set for the Stanley Cup playoffs. We got an elite Sheldon Keefe quote to go over via our buddy, producer Vic, bringing the heat as per usual. He remains day to day. We're hopeful he is going to bounce back. Once he gets through the day or two here, it's not going to be a lingering situation. It's not an injury that is going to be outgoing or ongoing. Once he's past it, he's past it. Can you comprehend coaches speak? Because I don't know what the fuck that means.
No. I get it. Like every day you have a routine with the trainer, and whether you're doing stim or ultrasound, or like for a high ankle sprain, I've like probably a lot of ultrasound. It just kind of creates the perfect, the ideal healing environment. All the muscles around it, you want to keep them, active and not let them kind of get, not use them. They're going to pile up and stiffen up, all that shit. So every day you're doing a whole bunch of different things, a whole plethora of treatments. And every day it kind of, the idea is it gets a little bit, a little bit better, a little bit better when you're taking care of that and eating properly, and you're on, every different supplement, and you're getting all the treatment in the world and rest, and you're hydrated, like everything. The body at that age heals pretty good. Each day you notice it getting a little bit better. And if he's like, right now he's like, I am at like almost 100%, but when I wake up in the morning, I still kind of feel it. It's a little bit stiff. Once I warm it up and get moving, I don't really notice it anymore. Okay, well, in 3 days, you probably won't notice that stiffness anymore when you wake up in the morning, and it'll just feel 100%. Then we'll give you 3 more days, and then, you know what I mean? And then you're 100%. It's not going to bother you anymore. It's gone. It's done. It's healed, as opposed to, where, it feels pretty good. I can probably play. Like, it's just, they're getting to the point where he doesn't think about it anymore. It's completely healed. And I think that's what he's trying to say there when I read between the lines, because that's just how it works with an injury.
Day-to-day upper body injury, undisclosed injury won't have a lingering effect is what we gather from that whole situation. So again, no Morgan Rielly for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I don't think any
Oh, that's
Edmonton.
Morgan Rielly. Sorry, I thought he was talking about Marner.
No, that was on Morgan Rielly.
Well, same thing applies.
Yeah,
Same thing
yeah.
applies. No reason to rush it. You're gonna just get it closer and closer to 100% every single day. And like he says, there's a couple days here it'll be gone and it'll be fixed and it'll be healed, and you won't have to think about it again. So
Yeah, they got 9 defensemen to sift through too, right? So if you want to rest Morgan Rielly for a couple games, by all means, like he is so important to this team, and specifically the way he played last spring, he was incredible in that postseason run. And Tampa specifically, even that Florida series, thought he was pretty good. There's no help around him. The only thing sweeter than the taste of victory is starting your day off with the new Cinnabon pull-apart from Wendy's. That said, there's no reason you can't have both now that Wendy's and Daily Face-Off Fantasy are giving you a chance to win weekly prizes all season long. And hey, even if you make a few wrong picks, at least heading to Wendy's right now for a $5 Cinnabon pull-apart and a small coffee would be a great choice. Sign up for Daily Face-Off today, sponsored by Wendy's and the Wendy's app. So Alex Ovechkin and company in town, the Capitals on fire. They've won 6 of 7. If you do recall, that game that they didn't win was against the Leafs on March 20th. A 7-3 win in Washington for that Leafs squad, a jumbo effort. It was a bounce-back effort. Toronto's won both meetings thus far, outscoring Washington 11-4, but a dangerous, hungry hockey team coming into town on Thursday night.
Yeah, for sure. And again, this time of year, it's you're going to run into teams that are hungry as all hell, and you're going to, they're going to come up against teams that are doing the whole, hey, Morgan Rielly, take the night off. Hey, Austin, optional. Don't stay out if you have a bit of a bug. Like, it's going to be odd. And again, the thing that I can look for is the supporting cast, like we talked about. If they step up, how much they step up. Are they ready to, show the management, show the coaching staff, like, I'm firing right now. You can rely on me. I can be a part of this, because let's not dick around here. Like, this team has proven that if you just rely on the big boys, that's not a formula to win, right? It is a team game, a team sport. It always has been. So that supporting cast needs to come up big. And recently, I really think they have. It's one of the shining kind of lights on this team right now is, the emergence of of Bertuzzi's game, of the way Domi's clicking with Matthews and the chemistry they're starting to find. The Holmbergs and the McMahons have been playing pretty solid and chipping in. And you need those guys to step up and elevate. Every team that goes for a run, every team that goes and wins the Stanley Cup, they have those stories, right? Those guys that stepped in and holy shit, did you ever have a playoff run? So-and-so, third liner, Mr. Third Line guy, Mr. PK guy, Mr. Forecheck man, Mr. Hits everything that moves, like intensity and all those intangibles that it takes to get the edge on a series of another really, really good team across the ice. It takes that stuff. So these guys stepping up is nice. And here's another opportunity for them to kind of showcase that and show that they're ready and show that Keefe can put some faith in them come down the stretch and into the offseason.
And again, if Auston Matthews does play, he's got 59 goals, needs one more to get 60. I thought it'd be a really cool little narrative and story if he did it with obviously Ovechkin in the mix, and both those guys scored in their matchup last week. So look out for that if Matthews again does play. If you're just tuning in, game time decision due to the flu for Auston Matthews. I'm sort of annoyed too. Like, we're gonna miss another installment of Ryan Reeves and Tom Wilson because Wilson's suspended way back when that game against the Maple Leafs and that hit. And that high stick on Noah Gregor that just we had no clue what the fuck he was doing, but he's not playing in this game. By the way, it looks like Ryan Reeves is getting back in. I wonder if Noah Gregor is going to be in too if Matthews can't play, because we know Marner's the placeholder at the morning skate, but he's not ready to return just yet.
Yeah, I don't know who's going to go where. I couldn't even guess, but I would put down a heavy bet that the lines that they start the game with will not be the ones that they finish with. I think he's going to mix it up, and as he likes to do, I really don't like it. But I mean, imagine being out there and you get a shift with, say, the second line, and you get kind of a shot, or like say you get some time on the second PP or something like that, and you just get like 4 shifts and it just doesn't. Sometimes you go out there as a forward and the possession isn't there. You don't quite set it up in the ozone and you got to get the hell off, and just nothing happens. You get 4 shifts and then someone else gets a shot. It's like, what the fuck? Like, did you give me that shot for a reason? And can I have a minute to sink my teeth into it and see what I can do with it? Or is everything just on a knife's edge of, if I don't show something instantly out the door with a whole bunch of fireworks, I'm pulled off the line to try something else right now? And it's like, even when it works, he seems to mix it up. And I don't know, I'm noticing a common theme on social media as well, that people are annoyed with, the way that Keefe is running the lines, with the way he's running the bench. People are saying, like, when Mitch is back, he's going to split up Domi and Bertuzzi and Auston, which I would not be shocked if he did, although I would be very annoyed. It's just like, I don't know what he's looking for with these combinations. If he doesn't stick with something that's working, then what the hell are you looking for? Like, I really don't understand it. And I've never really seen it before to that level where you just cannot count on the lineup staying remotely the same. But we will see, give him the benefit of the doubt another time here. And hopefully he can, he's looking for chemistry, and when he finds it, he'll keep it. We'll see.
Look, I'm not Mr. Coach Defender. I've been on the record. I maintain it. I think it's time for a coaching change in this market. Having said that, the onus is on the players. It should be on the players. Okay, the coach can only do so much with lines and all that, but it's about the big boys, man. Do they want to rise up? Do they want to rise to prominence? Do they want to step up? So I know a lot of people in the last couple of days, just like you, I've been seeing social media, people pissed about Sheldon Keefe. I know it's about him, but for the most part, it's about the bigger players, the top end guys. Can they put together things at the right time? And I just think the coach is such an easy scapegoat, but I'm right there with you. The lines change on a nightly basis. You just don't know what's going to transpire. Joseph Woll making his 3rd straight start. Another sneaky big start where it's like, you're running out of racetrack here, Rosie. If you're Joseph Woll, to grab that number 1 spot in time for game 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs, and B, just generally feel good for the playoffs, right?
Yeah, for sure. He's kind of been in the games where he hasn't stolen them. He's been all right, but he hasn't, like, risen up and stolen games and been this shining factor in a game, which is fine. That doesn't happen all the time. It's a good league, but yeah, it's he's due for a good one. He's due for a performance here. He's due to be the best goalie in the game. He's due to be a huge part of a win. And if not, it'll kind of be more of the same. And as it's been clipping along, he's kind of been slotted kind of just behind Sammy, right? Sammy's been solid. He's made those big saves. He's He's stolen wins. He's been huge factors in getting 2 points and beating good teams. He's been solid. So he's kind of the number one. And, he's resting up a little bit. And I like giving Wool a couple of shots. His third game in a row, as you mentioned, is good for him to get back in. And I think it's been an odd thing for him to come back from his injury and, get both Boston games. I did not agree with that whatsoever. And then just hasn't really been able to, rise up and show, his 100% ability lately. So hopefully he can do that tonight. It's a big test, not a big test, but a big opportunity for him.
Yeah, I just chalked this up to the ebbs and flows of the season. The Leafs, if you do recall, like 3 weeks ago, were red hot, and now they're in a bit of a lull again. I think they will figure things out. But that's the one thing I would notice from when Wool came back. I wouldn't say either guy has really solidified that number one spot. I still think it's up for grabs. I think there's potential, obviously, maybe with the calf issue or whatever you want to say when it comes to Samsonov and that injury for Wool to take back the crease. But every game, I mean, there's limited starts available. We just talked about it. After this one, 10 games remaining on the season. And in general, I'm just curious to see what type of game plan is instilled by Washington. If you do recall, they were on the back end. The Leafs last week, obviously the game in Philadelphia, they bounced back in a big time way. Capitals, their first game back from a Western road trip. And early on, the Capitals were hitting everything in sight. And I wonder if that's a coincidence with Spencer Carberry being the head coach of that team and him being a former assistant on the Maple Leafs bench. I think everybody knows maybe the way to beat the Leafs or the way to try to beat the Leafs is to play heavy with them, right?
That has been, the theme in the past, no doubt. And, with guys out in bodies, we'll see what the style of play is. But, I mean, if you go back to the Edmonton game, we bullied Edmonton out of the building, basically. So I think their DNA has changed a little bit with the addition of a few different players. Bertuzzi can get in there a bit. Domi can get in there a bit. You got guys that can go around and hit a little bit. And on the back end, I think everyone really liked Edmondson there that game against Edmonton. And, that's kind of the formula to play like, right? Don't get bullied out of the building, play that physical style, get guys out of your crease, finish hits, play big, play mean in your own end, and get the puck to those guys up front where, they can do their thing down in the D zone. And when you're in the D zone, or the O zone, that's great, but you got to cover your basics too, as these defensemen and the third man high. You got to cover, the defensive side of the puck too. I think they got away from that a little bit recently. But opportunity to do that for everybody, and, whatever they throw at them, I think Washington's a better team than they've kind of measured up this year. When I watched them in Calgary, their goalie was unbelievable. Like,
Yeah.
he looked about as sharp as could be. Ovi was playing. They got some players that can kind of get the job done. So, they're hungry. They're going to be pushing, and it'll be a test, especially for those guys that get an opportunity here if guys are out of the lineup.
They've been a very cool story because I think they've been pitted with the Pittsburgh Penguins all season long, and one's been a magical story and on a magical run the last little while, and the Pens not so much. So we'll see what the Capitals bring to the table, fighting for their playoff lives, of course, in the Eastern Conference right now. Roll Up to Win is back for Tim's 60th anniversary, and to celebrate their big year, you can win some big prizes like an all-electric Volkswagen ID4, a sun-soaked Hilton getaway, and cash with a daily jackpot of $10,000. Play today on the Tim's app. So a reminder, no show on Friday. We're back on Monday due to the long weekend. So with that in mind, we're going to tee up the game coming up on Saturday night. Always eventful when the Leafs play the Buffalo Sabres. They're on the road in Buffalo, the fourth and final meeting. The Leafs 1-2-0 against the Sabres this season. Last encounter, March 6th at Scotiabank. A 2-1 OT victory for the Maple Leafs. What's it like to be a player for a game in Buffalo?
It's nothing crazy. The barn's all right because there's a lot of Maple Leafs fans in there. I remember it seems like they don't fare well against Buffalo a lot of the time.
It was a big stretch where they suck there.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those anomalies. Even when the team was good and clearly heads and shoulders better than Buffalo in the standings and whatnot, they'd drop games, especially in Buffalo, it seemed like. But yeah, I don't know. Buffalo, a little bit of a disappointing year. They kind of seem like they're almost a little bit irrelevant when they weren't really supposed to be. But the potential is there for them to be really good down the road. They got some prospects and some guys that could develop into really fine players. So we'll see. And I don't know. Again, just weird time of year, man. Again, weird time of year. It's not ideal for doing shows. It's not ideal for doing commentary. It just is what it is. But always just you're measuring against yourself. And we always, like you say, it doesn't matter who we play in these games. It's because you believe that it only matters what those players in the room do. So just another opportunity to figure out, establish and staple what you are as a team and what you're going to bring every night and what your mentality is every night. Like, it shouldn't change. Good teams, like, you look at Colorado Avalanche when they won the Stanley Cup, like they knew who they were every single night, and they brought the same mentality every single night because they had formulated that over time to realize that this is the best way to go about a hockey game for this group to win. And they got that down pat to the point where nobody else could beat them, and they win the Stanley Cup. Like, that's always the formula. And to me, whatever they're playing, whatever time of year it is, you're always trying to get that going and to build on that, building blocks to the point where you got this big tower, this big monster that can roll through the playoffs. And that's part of the reason why I always get pissed off at Keefe wrecking the lines. It's like these guys can't continue moving forward when they're always looking around trying to figure out what the hell is going on around them. And it's nothing but change. You need some consistency in there, which bothers me. So I hope they find some of that down the stretch here.
Would you go with Samsonov on Saturday in Buffalo, regardless of what transpires against Washington?
Most likely,
Hopefully he's got a
depending on how
short memory, because if I do recall, it was a game in December. He got pulled. I think that was his last game. Remember, it was like 9-3, that shit show in Buffalo.
Yeah, but I don't think it's indicative of Buffalo Sabres. It's just the timing of that whole thing. I don't think that matters. I don't think it's relevant. It will depend on how this game goes tonight, I believe, and how his calf's holding up. But if Wool stands on his head and they get a big win, and Sammy's still got some, finickiness going with his leg, by all means go to Wool. But otherwise, I think it would be Sammy to step in and give her shit.
Yeah, I think so too. I think you have to find a way to use both those guys, and certainly 3 straight starts for Wall, starting or ending, I would think, tonight against the Washington Capitals. So we'll see what happens on Saturday against the Buffalo Sabres. The Sabres will be in the second game of the back-to-back. I believe they play New Jersey coming up on Friday too, so keep that in mind moving forward. It's time for the Great Clips Inbox question of the day. We're with more than 4,400 hair salons throughout the United States and Canada. Great Clips is the world's largest hair salon brand, an official hair salon of the NHL. Salons are locally owned and operated and open 7 days a week. Your time is valuable. Use the Great Clips check-in app. See the wait time. Check in on your phone and get your haircut when you want. Dr. Firewater writes in, with Marner away from the team, has he shown his value, and what will he sign for? Would you still trade him for assets? I would still trade him, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so hard to know, man. I think it depends on how this postseason goes. I don't think you can't trade him without his, consent and blessing and him
True.
being involved in the deal. But it'll depend how this postseason goes. It's tough, man. Like, guys continually play well and kind of earn another contract, and you give it to them, and then you're stuck with it for a long time. And on the flip side, you let a guy go like a Zach Hyman and feel like he's just not worth this much money that he's going to command. And then you look back at that with hindsight, which is 2020, and you're like, man, that wasn't that much money to pay him. And if he's going to be that type of player, we let one get away there. So there's always that fear, and that tends to be a theme in Toronto and has been for years and years and years. But it's tough, man. It's tough. I mean, he is showing his value right now, and he has been playing the kind of hockey that I think he's expected to play this year. I think earlier in the year and last year he was more frustrating, but it's a kind of a contract potential extending year, and he's playing the right way, and he's not having those defensive breakdowns and those low percentage plays, and he's not playing frustrating hockey. So it's going to be a tough one. It's going to be the conversation of the summer without a doubt.
Yeah, looking forward to that one. Hopefully it happens in like June and not like a month and a half from now. That would sort of stink for programming reasons here on the podcast. Boy Soul writes in, would players ever talk about who they might play in the playoffs? Do teams ever try to lose?
No, fuck no. No, that's never a theme. It's not something that a coach could ever even utter. It's not something that a person would say out loud. It just goes against every fiber in their body. Like, the mentality is always get better, win. Doesn't matter who we're playing, just always better hockey team. And to say, like, it just would never be uttered in the room at all. But there is a subconscious element to it of, what's your reaction to a loss this time of year? where before it's like it's so goddamn unacceptable and like guys are distraught after the game. Subconsciously now, it's like, it's not the worst. It's not the worst thing in the world, and that's just a subconscious mental thing. But by no means is that being spoken about in a meeting or in video or anything like that. You could be doing video though and saying, in this situation in the D zone during their cycle, you could say Florida does this really well and we got to make sure that we do blah, 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 blah. And like that type of thing, talking about potential matchups in the playoffs. But other than that, the majority of the focus is spent on yourself and your team and what you need to do rather than talking about, outside teams or their tendencies.
For more information, check out greatclips.com. Great Clips, it's going to be great. The Betano wrap-up is presented by Betano.ca. The game starts now, 19+. Please play responsibly. Major announcement, Betano is the official partner of Copa America 2024, taking the beautiful game to new heights in the Americas. Join Betano on their journey of passion, unity, and unforgettable football moments. I know one place I'm looking at tonight, and that's the captain, John Tavares. I like the shot prop. I like him to get on the score sheet. He was called out by his head coach the other night.
Yeah, it's a good call. I think he'll probably respond or be trying to respond. And like you mentioned before, the money line with these guys giving her shit when not their back is against the wall, but when there's opportunity and they're a little bit lean and thin if Auston doesn't play. It's almost weird that you're like leaning towards the money line if Auston doesn't play. That's like insane. But they have had situations where they step up to the plate and they got guys that are playing well that are in a supporting role who will get an opportunity tonight, especially if Auston doesn't play. So I also think it's time for Woll to step up and have a big time performance. So I think that's very possible for him today. All reasons to point towards what you said and the money line.
The market has not adjusted whatsoever. I thought it would. It hasn't. The Leafs minus 175 favorites to win this game against a Capitals team that is desperate for life right now. They've won 6 of 7. They're feeling good. Hate to say it. There's probably more value on taking Washington tonight. But the one thing I did play was the Leafs puck line. Still at plus money, plus 135. So for the Leafs to win by over a goal and a half, just in general, we've talked about this all year. There's just like no value in betting on the Leafs money line. It's crazy how much money pours in on that.
Yeah, it sucks. And I think that's volume and that's just heavy volume and Vegas protecting itself. It's the same thing with Tiger Woods, man. Like everyone loves Tiger, like who's a golf fanatic and likes to bet on it and watch it. When he's in a tournament, there's nothing like it. Everyone's pulling for him when he's in the lead, and when he does well, it's just a completely different experience. So people love to see that. They throw tons of money on it, and for that reason, even if the guy hasn't played in 3 months and his back's buggered and his legs buggered and he doesn't really have a chance in hell winning, his value is crazy. So it's the same idea with the Leafs. I think it just comes down to volume and the amount of people that do bet on them, and it's just it sucks there's not a lot of volume. But like I've said on the show before, I will not watch a game when I've bet against the Leafs. So there's all kinds of other props out there and player props and whatnot that you can bet on to keep you cheering for the Leafs, because I'm not cheering against the Leafs ever. It's no fun.
All right, sounds good. So that's going to do it for this week. Again, no show coming up on Friday. Rosie, we're going to be back with you on Monday, and 2 juggernaut matchups Monday, Wednesday. You got Florida at home on Monday, Tampa on Wednesday. So looking forward to that.
Are we not going tomorrow?
We're not going tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
I guess Rosie didn't hear that news.
Today's Thursday?
Yeah.
What the hell? Okay, I thought it was Wednesday. I'm a little out of the loop. So that's it. Hey, okay, rock and roll. I'll see you Monday then.
Yep. So there you have it. The Leafs and the Capitals on this Thursday night. We'll recap the Buffalo game coming up on Monday as well and get you set for another week as we get closer and closer to the Stanley Cup playoffs. So once again, if you're watching right now, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. If you celebrate, happy Easter as well. Many thanks to producer Vic. Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcast, make sure to leave us a 5-star review. That'd be fantastic. For Jay Rosehill, I'm Nick Alberga. We'll talk on Monday. Take care. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long-form interviews. We got clips. We got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.